Nima Sure at Irita TV. Today is December 15th, 2021, and we are chilling out and having maybe more relaxed and informal conversation because it's our show and we can do that, goddammit. How you doing, Nima?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Pretty chill.
Anything particularly on your mind?
Well, blockchain, I guess.
Yeah? Is that what
today's topic? There's a lot of things on my mind, but we're not going to make those today's topic, I think.
Okay. And blockchain is what's going on behind you, right?
Yes, this is a live shot of a blockchain right here. This is a block right here, and then there's like a chain.
And
it consists of zeros and ones. So that's what goes on under the hood in the world of crypto.
Is it the modern day Matrix?
It does look like it, doesn't it?
Yeah. I feel really weird saying that. Modern day Matrix makes just over 20 years old, dude. Holy shit. So I think as any conversation you know I've had before on crypto, I think it's always fascinating because you're a great person to talk about it. So you went to school for IT related stuff, right? You ended up getting your master's degree. You went on to develop an auction software business that was very successful, and you sold off very successfully. So with this sort of background, one of the things that I'm curious about is what originally attracted you to Bitcoin, which is the only crypto available back then,
right?
That made you say, this is a good idea that I want to get involved with, and has your view, or has your view since then changed from that original assessment?
Yeah. So, why did I start getting into blockchain? That was about, I think, in 2011. So about 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago. At this point, I came across it somewhere. I think, I don't know if Slashdot was still a thing back then, or some Reddit post about Bitcoin goes from 30 cents to $2 or something like that. And to me, it was basically, I'd already known decentralized file sharing like Kazaa and,
Napster.
All the Napster.
Not LimeWire. Remember LimeWire? Yeah.
Of course. Email. And also BitTorrent. These were all around already. And I was also into gold and gold money and Austrian. It humbles me to say, but I was a big Austrian economics proponent at the time. And
that's where the economics junkie comes from, right?
Right.
Which is and your other moniker for someone who's just stumbling into this the first time.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so Bitcoin was, to me, it was like BitTorrent for money. So it instantly made sense to me. There was never really, at least for me in my journey, there was never really a moment where I thought it sounded like a stupid idea. I only became more and more confident the more I started tinkering with it, trying it out. That was always how I progressed into it in the beginning, at least. Okay, they say this, it does this. Okay, let's try it out. Let's install it. I built an online wallet at the time just for myself.
And what year roughly is this? Like 2010, 2000?
This would have been 2011.
Okay.
And 2012. Yeah, and I started playing around. Start doing some hobby mining. I know how the mining process works. And also just started buying some, which was really hard to buy at the time. You had to go through several intermediaries. One way to buy was you basically create an account in Second Life, and then you find an ATM in Second. You buy Linden dollars, you find an ATM in Second Life, that kind of stuff. But and this was at a time when the mainstream media was just universally trashing Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and it was so silly, so stupid, ha ha ha. And fast forward today, 10 years from now, here we are, and the world is a little different. So to me, it was at the time I was big into gold money, decentralized money. So it was a big hope. It was the system that was going to change everything, that was going to make government impossible to abuse their power and all those things. So I could say, I guess I went into it with a little bit of eagerness and naivete, but it also helped, obviously, in learning more about it and being engaged in the community. I went to all the Bitcoin meetups. I was living in San Francisco at the time. So at some point we started having more and more Bitcoin meetups. So that became a thing.
Our first speaker tonight, first of all, everyone, thanks for coming to the Internet Archive. I know this was kind of a last minute switch, but honestly, a cooler venue, right? Yay! Yay for Internet Archive, thank you! So we'll just start it off with Nima Majur, who's talking. He has a company that's bit.co.in, which uses the Namecoin blockchain, and he's going to be talking about Namecoin to you all.
Hello. Right. I'm Nima Majur. I've been an entrepreneur here in the Bay Area for about 10 years and involved with Bitcoin since about 2011. And I want to talk about Namecoin and why I believe many believe it's the future of DNS. So I'm going to be talking about why is Namecoin important, some basics about the Namecoin protocol, the history of it, merged mining, how to apply it, and questions if we have time. So why Namecoin? The current domain name mapping system that maps website addresses to servers all over the world is rather centralized and thus allows certain parties to intervene and allows for censorship. And all over the world, governments and other dangerous groups do in fact take advantage of this centralization. For example, you've probably heard recently that the Russian government just started banning Bitcoin.org and related websites. And the solution to that, wouldn't it be great to have a completely decentralized alternative that relies on blockchain technology where everyone can be their own registrar and where censorship is pretty much impossible?
That's how I got into it. And so, where do I stand now versus then? I would say I still believe in the concept. It's very sound. It's very battle proven and battle hardened. Over the years, there's been a lot of challenges thrown our way, and it's still around. It's still here, and a lot of trash talking has been done, and yet it's still here. It's still thriving and doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, my idealistic hopes of this was going to change the world and all that, they've sort of diminished more and more over the years, and I'm not a big fan of the entertainment media aspect of where crypto is at now, and the whole frenzy and all the hype and all, doing whatever to get idiots involved.
Get a second mortgage on your home because you need to buy right now because it's hot at the top of the market.
Very, very bad. Very bad behavior. Suddenly promoted. 10 years ago, it was kind of when it would have been a good time to give that advice to people. It was crickets and trash talking and just pure silliness. But so that's sort of idealistically, I've sort of, I guess I wouldn't say my hopes have been dashed or whatever. I just understand that there's a whole lot more to changing the world than having decentralized.
Yeah, well, and I remember one of the first things that was coming out from people who were thinking it was going to save the world is that you don't have to pay taxes on it, right? It's not U.S. money, so you don't have to pay taxes on it. And the government was like, "Oh yeah, watch this." But how does it make sense when it's not money? Mm-hmm. Well, it makes sense the same way any other tax makes sense. They said so. So you have to pay it. Like that's the end of the story. For I don't know, a comedic effect or just contrast. Ironically enough, I also discovered Bitcoin in 2011. Did I ever tell you this story?
I vaguely remember you telling me that.
I'm going to tell it again. just for the sake. So this is at the beginning of my misadventuring through Europe. I buy a one-way plane ticket to Austria. I show up on this farm in the middle of nowhere in Austria, and at night I would just dink around on my laptop, and I come across this article about being able to buy alpaca socks with this thing.
I remember that business that was selling alpaca socks.
Yeah, and I'm like, I want some motherfucking alpaca socks. And so I look up and I go, okay, Bitcoin, what's this? And I downloaded the thing to start mining, and I just couldn't figure it out. I'm like, this is so fucking forget it. Close the laptop.
Right. Well, my first Bitcoin purchase was Mandrick's gluten-free almond cookies.
Yeah.
For I paid 4.5 Bitcoin.
For how many cookies? Like 10?
Maybe
or
20-ish. Yeah, not that it matters one way or another. It was a lot of money by today's standards. So back then it was $20 or $25.
Yeah, for nothing.
Like
I just ran something on my computer. Now I got $20. Sweet, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, you started mentioning the a little frustration that you have with the modern day conversation. The next question I would ask is, what are your favorite and most frustrating feelings toward the current conversations that happen around, not just Bitcoin at this point, but crypto in general?
Well, my favorite is all the areas where it's actually useful for us. For example, we started this show, and we went with hosting platforms and social media platforms that rely to some extent on blockchain technology, which makes them more decentralized, harder to shut down, harder to censor, etc. What I don't like is as soon as VCs and bankers and Wall Street types get involved, that's they always tend to turn everything into a hysteria.
Mm-hmm.
And you started seeing that with the Bitcoin conferences over the years. Like, I remember, I think the first Bitcoin conference I went to was in Austin, 2013. It was full of people who were idealistic and who were not VC types at all, maybe some here and there, but mostly sort of libertarian activists. It's just such a blast to meet people who I'd never met before. I met Stefan Molyneux out there, for example, and a bunch of other people from within the field. And over the years, it's just become more and more VCs, investment bankers, and we reached this whole frenzy now with altcoins and ICOs, and to the point where now you have coins that are launched by venture-funded groups, which is just none of these coins. I don't think these coins do very well, generally speaking. The ones that are still around were ones that are the leaders of the pack, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, a couple of others up there too. But they are generally open source projects that were launched by cypherpunks and stuff like that. So that's probably one of the most annoying aspects of the whole crypto frenzy, is what's been done over the past few years. Of course, it's always whatever the entertainment media does, they have to turn it into crap. I don't know why, but it's just always they have to simplify it and dumb it down and turn it into some kind of scheme to exploit people. And so, of course, we're seeing that to some extent.
What's the adage that J.R.R. Tolkien always worked into his works, is that evil can't create anything; it can only pervert what has already been created.
Yeah, that's what the devil does, isn't it?
Yeah. So, what's your? I know the answer to this, but let's just talk about it again because it's fun. What's your unique take on crypto and Bitcoin that describes its value, that the Austrian and libertarian-minded masses that are typically involved with this typically won't like to wrap their minds around?
Right, which is the irony is that I also got interested in Bitcoin, in my opinion, now looking back, for the wrong reasons, because Bitcoin isn't really a commodity like gold. Bitcoin is much rather resembles a monetary system, kind of like we have today. You know, people always jump up and down when I start comparing Bitcoin to fiat money systems. So the caveat being, of course, I understand fiat money is based on violence and the crypto system is based on voluntary interaction. But the monetary flows are very similar.
Sorry, what the hell is going on behind you on that TV?
Sometimes it plays ads.
You
I wish it was just
cut that shit out, man.
No, I would have blockchain. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So you can only come to this understanding if you understand MMT and if you understand crypto, which is very rare, you know, because most people who understand MMT don't want to bother with crypto, and the crypto people generally talk trash about MMT. But if you take the two systems and see the overlap, you can walk away with a very unique conclusion, which is that MMT actually perfectly explains the reason why something like Bitcoin, something like Ethereum, all these cryptocurrencies have value. Namely, in the MMT universe, why does a US dollar have value? It's because there's a government that one day imposed a tax, and it declared that this tax has to be paid in US dollars. And so now people who need to pay their taxes, they need the US dollars. So they come to me for public employment. This is obviously a very simplified version of the story, but by and large,
which we talk about on other shows. So go please listen to the other shows. We've talked we talk about it ad nauseum, and probably will continue to do so.
For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the general flow in the fiat money world is government imposes a tax. People need to pay the tax, so they go to the government for work. Government pays them money, which means the economy incurs a public sector deficit. And whatever money is taxed out of the economy reduces that deficit. So the taxes drive the value of the currency. It's what MMTers always say: taxes drive value, taxes drive value. In the world of cryptocurrency, it's very similar, actually, because the miners impose a fee that has to be paid in Bitcoin. So if you want to have access to the Bitcoin blockchain, you need to pay a fee in Bitcoins to the miners to get access to the blockchain and to broadcast the transaction blockchain. And Bitcoin, in the world of Bitcoin, of course, it's Bitcoin. You can only pay your Bitcoin transaction fees with Bitcoins. You can't pay them with Ethereum or with Litecoin.
Or dollars. You can't pay them with dollars
or
either.
Dollars.
Yeah.
Right. Same applies to the Ethereum blockchain. You can only pay your gas fees in Ethereum with Ethers. And so this is how any blockchain creates its own monetary ecosystem. People have to pay a fee in that token to get access to that blockchain. And why do they want access to that blockchain? Because having access to the blockchain gives them something of value in return. For example, broadcasting a Bitcoin transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain it gives me provides value in the sense that now a new ledger entry has been added onto the blockchain. It could also be it could be something that's not a monetary transaction. For example, I could store the hash of a document, a one-way hash of a document in the blockchain, just to prove that at that point in time, this document existed. And I will always be able to prove in the future, okay, here's a document, we recreate the hash, and it was put in the blockchain on date so-and-so at 3 o'clock or whatever. So this is the first time ever that a mechanism has been developed to prove the existence of a document in time without having to involve a centralized third party, which is amazing. This has never been around. So, and I don't think it's emphasized often enough, but this is the value of blockchain. This is, if you want to go back to the root of why does the Bitcoin have, why does the Ether? Because all of these tokens allow you to create an entry in a decentralized, immutable permanent ledger that doesn't require involving a third party like an escrow company or anything like
And then
that.
This is actually a point of contention I have had in the past, which is I would argue from that description, haven't we created a little bit of a tautology? So with the ability to record a timestamp for a document aside, if you look at it and we say, okay, you need let's just talk about Bitcoin for the sake of simplicity. You need Bitcoin to access the blockchain, and access to the blockchain allows you to have Bitcoin. Well, isn't that a circular argument? And now I don't bring that up to say, okay, that I disagree. The argument that I've made is that I think that these cryptos are actually a prototype for a we'll call it a private currency, because of what they're able to do beyond that circular motion. And then, you bring up, okay, look, here's the actual service that you get from being able to access that, which is, for example, because the timestamp.
Right, because that's why I say it's not circular, because the value you're getting is not Bitcoin. The value you're getting is the entry of whatever it is that you wanted to put in there, sitting there, available to pull up and reference at any time in the future.
Well, and then for clarity's sake, I think because that's a little bit hard to grasp, I think. I think Steemit is easier to grasp. Now, I'm not shilling for Steemit here. I'm not saying that Steemit is going to be the new currency, or Steem, or whatever the tokens are. With Steemit, you get access to the services provided by Steemit, which is a media boost by utilizing their token. So that's the incentive to use that currency, right?
And it's similar with Odyssey, for example. If you're watching this video on Odyssey right now, we get view rewards in a currency called library credits, which is a blockchain-based cryptocurrency. But yeah, it provides some more tangible or some less abstract value than what I'm talking about when it comes to Bitcoin. But at the root of all of this, always you need to have a ledger entry that's immutable and that's decentralized, that doesn't require third-party involvement to record the transaction, or
right,
to record whatever it is that you're doing. So it always goes back. You propose it. So Satoshi proposed a network that has this capability, and then participating in the network, all these things, they're all based on the premise that the network can do these things. So
let's talk about Satoshi. Finish your thought first.
Well, just going back to, I just want people to understand this, because I think it's so underappreciated, but really the modern monetary theory, the fiat money system, the money flow in that system, taxes are imposed, people need the taxes. In the case of fiat currency, they need it so they don't get their doors kicked in and thrown in a cage. In the world of Bitcoin, it's voluntary. It's if you want to have this ledger entry capability, if you want to have decentralized, permanent, immutable ledger without involving a third party, then Bitcoin is your system, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just important to understand. I think that's where the value proposition for Bitcoin is derived from.
So let's talk about Satoshi. Do you believe that Satoshi was an actual guy who invented this?
I think he was a group probably of people. But yeah, now that you're asking me, I tend to think that it was probably one guy pushing it. There's been this topic has been theorized on ad nauseum.
Well,
but he wrote in pretty good English, and so it would seem plausible that he was from an English-speaking area. But who knows ultimately?
Well, I mean, you kind of answered this, which is, so is crypto a divine gift from the free market gods, or is it more of a tool of subterfuge for a clandestine and nefarious group of rulers that want to control everybody?
Right. Right. There's camps on this, and either camp is always very certain that they have it right. I tend to, fall somewhere in between that. Maybe I would say I find it implausible that this guy secretly invented a decentralized currency system that can challenge the world's oligarchs and then vanish into thin air.
Right.
All very convenient setup, I think. On the other hand, I have followed Bitcoin almost from the beginning, maybe 2 years after it was launched. And I tend to think that I'm not the most trusting person when it comes to really any of this stuff. I'm a pretty skeptical person. And when I see a PR rollout, I think I can generally tell, I generally smell bullshit. And the problem that I have with that theory that Bitcoin was introduced by nefarious actors with a plan is that no step of the way in Bitcoin's journey have I ever felt that it was set up and that it was a stunt of any kind. It all seemed very natural, organic, dirty challenges. There's the fork here, fork there, etc. All this stuff. So, of course, I understand the CIA and the DOD and all these people. That's what they do sometimes, right? When they want to create a new environment or a new product, they just let people run wild with it, and then they co-opt it later on and take it over. That's possible. But so what? I mean, technically speaking, okay, let's say Bitcoin turns into CIA coin or some highly centralized system that's corrupt, etc., then someone can create a fork of it and publish the source code, and whoever prefers that fork can jump on it. And if it's obvious that the old, Fed coin or CIA coin it has been co-opted, then there'll be even more people jumping on the new bandwagon, on the new coin. If it's sort of, if it's very well done or whatever, then you still have 50-50. But the genius out of the bottle, this whole setup will always be around. Let's say cryptocurrency so-and-so gets adopted, we can copy the source code, we can create a fork, we can create a new system out of it. And that threat alone is what keeps Bitcoin somewhat decentralized. Now, of course, we have the miners are very important in the Bitcoin network, and there are concerns about mining consolidation and monopolization. That's always been an issue in Bitcoin, right? You don't want to have one miner have more than 50% of the network, because if they do, then they can manipulate the system in some ways. I mean, even then, they can't really necessarily. What they can do is they can double spend transactions. But so you're going to spend billions of dollars to co-opt the system, so you can order flat screen TV on Overstock.com and cheat them out of $1,000 or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how much power it's not certain that your double spend attack will succeed. So it's prohibitively expensive to try such an attack. And I'm sure there's other things they could do, other vectors that people are discussing these days.
And I'm sure the DOD and the Pentagon or whoever else are sitting there scheming up ways of how can we what sort of vector could we come up with to attack this thing?
Well, there's a list of this, even on the Bitcoin wiki. These things have been discussed over the years on and on. So the community is aware that there are certain attack vectors, and then the question has always been, how do we improve the system? How do we make it more decentralized? And that's also been the motivation behind a lot of today's altcoins, such as well, Litecoin was initially created as a silver to Bitcoin's gold by Charlie Lee. And he used a different algorithm, which was, at the time, at least, was thought to be more resistant against centralization. They used an algorithm called scrypt versus the SHA-256 that Bitcoin uses. And there may be some truth to that. I'm not exactly sure. I think at some point it's also become more centralized because the chip manufacturers, they always innovate and they always create better and better devices. And then the other consensus algorithm that's very popular, become very popular, is called proof of stake, which is basically there's no miners, but there's stakeholders, and you get to vote on whether, you get to, technically, I guess you get to vote on whether or not a certain block is added to the blockchain or not, or something like that. But that's, of course, a system where you don't, your hardware power doesn't matter anymore. There's no chips, no mining devices, but rather the amount of currency that you hold, the amount of coins that you stake, gives you certain rights within the system. And there are different flavors of this, different implementations of this.
Infinite varieties of everybody making a different coin every 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Trying this out.
That's part of the great thing about the crypto field. People try out new ideas. Litecoin implemented segregated witness first, and then Bitcoin adopted it, which it was a feature to improve Bitcoin's, smart contract capabilities. Ethereum is about to switch to proof of stake consensus algorithm, so that's also possible. You can start with proof of work and then switch over to stake. There's all kinds of experiments that are being done in this space still, and there's many more decades of experiments to come. But the field, what I find much more interesting is the process that's come out of this, and that there is such a field where people are experimenting, trying things out, and improving their respective products on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. Well, do you think it's worth bringing up the conversation we had the other day with a certain somebody?
Well, yeah. We had. This goes back to what you're saying. Was Bitcoin? Is it the real deal, or was it created by bad actors?
Right.
And we had a guy on who claimed to know that it was created by the British aristocrats.
And then let me interrupt. The reason the interview is not available is because I'm an idiot. And I unsuccessfully clicked the record button. So you can't tell from the way that I have the cameras and stuff set up, is that I've got a recording area and a control area over there. And all the recording happens on the computer over there, and I can't see it while I'm sitting here recording. So we did the whole show, said thank you, said goodbye. I walked over there, and then the whole thing hadn't recorded. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so stupid. Ah!
And, it happens. But so we lost that interview, but we tried to get some. I mean, I was interested. I was curious. Oh, wow, we've got some inside info. But it turns out the person didn't really know anything about blockchain. He thought that Bitcoin was based on a user profile system with a username and password, and that it's all run from the .io domain, the island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean.
In the middle of the Indian Ocean. Well, and then for credit, let's try to remember the extent to which the story was, which is that was it the island of what is it? What's the island called?
Well, I think Diego Garcia is the island.
So there's this island in the middle of the Indian Ocean that's an American naval base, if I remember right, and is controlled by a British corporation. Like, I don't know if it's controlled by the British corporation or the British Corporation Services, whatever's going on there. His argument was that all crypto is viewed and controlled from there, and that there's some sort of tunnel or back door that's interwoven into the very fabric of how the infrastructure of the internet is set up,
right,
that allows someone who's there to access and figure out who's done any sort of crypto interaction, whatever. Now, I mean,
right,
it's not it's not out of the it's not completely insane to suggest that crypto was, as we were talking about, crypto was developed for various reasons, and there's somebody watching and controlling it for something other than, oh, isn't this great from the free market gods, right? And the argument further that he made was that this is a way to start being able to track every single spending apparatus that every single person on Earth is doing. Which again is totally in line with what the who we call the New World Order. They write about this shit, right? It's to track everything that they're doing, and it utilizes the fact that because people will set up their independent nodes, that's like free storage space. Like, okay, instead of creating this entire infrastructure around the world, we can simply utilize the infrastructure that's already there. People will voluntarily accept. Will voluntarily do this for us by turning themselves into nodes, thinking they're participating in a democratic process, but in reality, they're just furthering the financial control system that's coming in order to basically have a track of every single thing you've ever done with money ever, and that if they don't like what you've done, they can zero in you and shut you off. Did I miss any details? Yes, I do remember a detail I missed. So he said in 1993, and this is something that could be checked out. I think I wrote this one down. Is that Bill Clinton, with going through my notes, with the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace in 1993. I think he said it was in Florida that they had this, but I don't remember that detail. Had the FBI there to try to figure out, what was it? How can they build a backdoor key to all transactions on the internet?
Yeah, right. And it was this guy named Philip J. Vanderbilt or something. I forgot the exact name.
So there was a Philip involved.
It was all very vague. I mean, I think we can summarize. It was all very vague. There was no specifics given in that conversation. There might be some truth to aspects of these things, but this particular individual was probably not a good source for that because he didn't know a blockchain. He thought
I wanted to put those points out there because those were the points that he did go over, and for the sake of trying to accurately reflect what he said, I wanted to have them out there. But yeah, I agree with you. When the story didn't. I didn't like the story once it came under scrutinization on detail.
Right, because I was trying to, and if we were to do this again, I would say, okay, here's the source code. Can you show me? Because the source code is open and available to everyone. You can start your own Bitcoin if you want, by the way. And okay, where's this IO domain invoked from within the source code? Because that's not really how it works. It's a peer-to-peer system. Where's the user profiles? Can you show me your username, password on your Bitcoin? These things aren't cryptocurrency. These things aren't Bitcoin or blockchain concepts, generally speaking. They're more like maybe legacy database, relational database design concepts, certainly. But it's just not how blockchain works, really. But it was a take.
Yeah, and then
we entertained.
Even if he's incorrect, that doesn't mean it wasn't created by nefarious actors. I mean, maybe there's another story where this is created by nefarious actors.
Sure, I mean, we're always open to that possibility. But I will go back to what I said. I've been watching this from very early on, every step of the way, and I haven't seen that kind of guiding hand or any indication of it. What I have seen, now that I'm speaking of it, these memories come back. Of course, I forgot the exact year when this drama started, but maybe it was 2015 or 2015 or 14, when certain people in the Bitcoin space started saying, well, the Bitcoin block size is too small and transactions are too expensive and it's too difficult. Bitcoin will never scale with a block size of 1 megabyte. I think it's now 2 megabyte. And so the obvious linear solution is, well, we have to increase the block size to 50 megabytes. So suddenly there was this push by people, and this was the first time when I started sensing bullshit. This urgency being created by certain actors in the network saying, if we don't increase the block size by so-and-so, the network will
it'll crash and break and burn.
Over. And none of this ever happened. It was always predicted accurately by the more cool-headed people in the community, that it's just not how the system works. It's not going to blow over. It's going to adjust. If there's too much activity, the fees are going to go up, and then there's going to be less activity, and things are going to calm down. That's a feature of the system. It's not a bug. Now, when it comes to scaling, it was always understood, Bitcoin at the time, and even still today, does not allow for a lot of throughput of transactions per second. But there are more intelligent solutions being worked on than to just increase the block size to 50 megabytes. Because number one, we don't want to have a large block size necessarily, because that, if anything, promotes centralization of the system. The larger the blocks you have to send upstream, the more bandwidth you need, and the more it lends itself towards centralization, and the more it shuts out your small nodes with your standard internet connection. So going to 50 megabytes was the dumb response to a complex problem. And it did actually happen, because as we know, today we have a cryptocurrency called Bitcoin Cash, which emerged out of this conflict that was started by these people back then, by these, I would call them shills, because they didn't seem very honest. They seemed very much into creating a false crisis. But ultimately they got, I guess you could say they didn't get their way, because Bitcoin main remained at its smaller block size, continued working on intelligent solutions. But they did create the split, and today it's called Bitcoin Cash.
Which is, I mean, it's not that much more than a minor spinoff at this point, right?
Yeah, I think it is not insignificant. If you look at all the cryptocurrencies out there, Bitcoin Cash is actually a not insignificant market cap. I don't know the exact numbers now, but I would guess it's probably somewhere in the top 10 or so at least. And then there was other ones. There's Bitcoin. Oh, no, that wasn't enough. So somebody else created Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision and so forth. So there's all kinds of forks that have been created over time. But compared to Bitcoin, yes, they are insignificant. But as far as proof of concept of the bigger idea, it works, right? You don't like the system, you create a fork, if you can excite enough people about it. And I think it was Roger Ver at the time who was a pretty big proponent and figurehead in the community, who launched Bitcoin Cash. I think he also owns the bitcoin.com domain, which he takes advantage of to promote Bitcoin Cash. But it did happen. We now have Bitcoin Cash. You can use it if you want. You can transfer, you can trade your Bitcoins for Bitcoin Cash, etc. So that just goes to show you that this whole concept works, right? Somebody doesn't like it, make your own. You can excite enough people, you get your new cryptocurrency.
So what about this angle? So Dan Pena, listening to him.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to tell you, because we're talking about these bad actors co-opting, taking over the system. But I just want to add to this that this seems to be the general approach of these bigger institutions, CIA, etc. If they want to co-opt something, they start creating division in the network, and that's possibly is one theory that I have why this whole drama about the block size was started in Bitcoin, is because there are people who always look out for could create division, not just in crypto, but everywhere in society. Right? We have the masking and the mandatory experimental gene drug injections and all these things. They always look for topics that create division. And with the block size, maybe they found some of the proponents, and they started lending support through nefarious actors. A bunch of weird people in the crypto space. Now, this Craig Wright, who claims that he's Satoshi, and at the same time he wants to sue everyone who laughs at him for it, which is totally what Satoshi would have done, right?
Right.
I think that's what he said in his paper. If you don't like it,
I'll sue you.
Sue them.
I'll sue you. So what about this angle? heard from Dan Pena screaming at us that if you knew who created Bitcoin, it'd go to zero tomorrow. So the point that he was making, and of course he wouldn't tell us. Do you know? Yeah. You got to tell us? No.
Well,
but that's not the point. The point I wanted to make is his argument was that a nefarious actor created this in order to destabilize the United States currency to make the United States weaker. I'll just leave it at that. What's your reaction to that sort of?
My reaction to this stuff is always
eyebrow raising.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The Bitcoin's code is open source. The original creator is 100% irrelevant. What does it matter which human typed these things? Look at the source code now. You can get your best and most talented crypto geeks auditing it, looking at it, and guess what? That's what's happening with all crypto coins. These are all things that the best minds in computer programming and in cryptography in the world browse and look at all day, every day. So what does it matter who created it? It's such a simple-minded take to say, if we find out who created this, no, that's the legacy, that's the dinosaur thinking, right? It's like, who created the Facebook source code? Who created the Twitter? In the world of Bitcoin, it doesn't matter because the source code is right there. You can download it with 2 clicks of a button or so. There's a meme, it's just a simple meme, but it says, source code open, original inventor irrelevant. And then in the middle of it is Bitcoin.
Word. I'm out of questions for you.
Do you have answers? No,
Yeah. But I am thinking about my wife called me before we started this, and because my daughter wanted to call me. I got a 2-year-old daughter. She called me to let me know that they bought nuts at the store today, and she really wanted to let me know that they bought nuts, and I think she's excited to give me nuts as soon as I go home. So let's wrap this up. I want to go home and eat some nuts.
Go, Greg. Go grab those nuts.
Cool. Well, this has been a relaxed version of I Read a TV with Dylan Moore and Nima Majur, and the plan is to start doing this a lot more often because it's fun as shit. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.